All righty, welcome back from the episode of Two Plane Sports. Today is Friday, December 16th, another day closer to early National Signing Day coming up on Wednesday. A lot of moving parts, a lot of things are flying around, things are going well in certain recruitments, certain things are not going well in other recruitments for Oklahoma, but overall, Oklahoma's in a pretty darn good spot for a lot of players and the overall class. So this episode's going to be strictly recruiting. Obviously, I mean, that's what probably everyone clicked on this video for recruiting. So we are going to be going live on Wednesday at 7 p.m. We're going to directly compete with Parker Thune and Brandon Drum. We picked 7 p.m. because normally they go 8:30. And they decided that they were going to do a 3-hour marathon. So we're going to directly compete with them. So we would like you guys to come by and talk with us. We're going to have JP and Trav on. We're working to get some players on as well. Trust me, we did not copy the idea from Parker Thune and Brandon Drum.
If anything, we announced it first. They're coming in to try to compete with us. But
Yeah.
who knows? Well, we might switch up the time a little bit just to give
Yeah.
to give more people content throughout the day rather than having to split their time between us and them.
Yeah, and maybe we try 6:30 and maybe we do that, and if that works for everyone. And actually I'm curious if people think 6 o'clock would work for them. Let us know, beginning of video challenge. Let us know if 6 would work for you, 6:30, because I don't want to compete against Brandon Drum and Parker Thune. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
So
I think they're going to get Jackson Arnold on, which we try to get him on, but I think they just beat us to him by a couple days.
yeah. So anyway, but before we get into today, we are knocking on the door of 5,500 subscribers. So if you're new here or if you have been here a few times, hit the subscribe button. It's easy and free. Turn that notification bell on so you'll know when we go live. And then comment on the video, like the video, and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, and Spotify. Everything's linked in the description below. And if you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, leave us a review. Helps us out a lot on that platform with the algorithm to push to other people that are interested in Oklahoma football. And yeah, so should we start with the Bowens? I think social media has been lit on fire. Well, I guess Peyton Bowen's been a topic of conversation since what, July?
That's January. That dude, it's been a long time coming, I guess. There's It's been a long time. We've talked about him forever, it feels like.
Yeah, we really have, and it's totally fine because it feels like everything's pointing in the direction that Oklahoma's going to win out in this recruitment, and it feels good. And I don't want to count our chickens before they hatch, but I mean, it seems like that Oklahoma, from everything that's being reported, that Oklahoma's going to get the last visit with Venables visiting him on Friday. So as you're watching this, and as we're recording this, supposedly Notre Dame is supposed to be visiting the Bowens as well. Oregon already paid their in-home visit with them, who shook everything up. Crazy NIL false reporting, $2 million whatever, which I think everyone needs to step back. And when you hear the $2 million deal, you know how many NFL safeties there are that don't make that money? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a kid coming out of high school, and don't get me wrong. I mean, he is one of the best safeties in the country. I mean, number 2 in the 247 composite ranking. But how many safeties in the NFL make $2 million or more? I mean, there's only a handful, and those are the best of the best. This is a kid out of high school. I mean, come on, let's just take a step back and think about it. What do you
And
think about these NIL rumors and things like that?
yeah, they're insane. And also let's just look at the donors too. Everyone's always talking about, well, donors are throwing around money, trying to get these players from at Oklahoma, at A&M, Texas, whatever school you want to major program, pick it. And opposing fans have said their donors are just throwing money around. These people have a significant amount of money to throw around because they're smart with it. They're not going to pull together $2 million a year to give to a high school player that's never touched the field at the college level. They're smarter than that. Most kids probably are not making that much money. Maybe the quarterback, like Josh Pate, I think put it perfectly. There's always the exceptions in these NIL things, and the most part, it'll be the quarterback that will get a large chunk of money like this. But we'll rarely see or hear that these guys are making this amount of money. They're going to make a decent amount of money within their 3 or 4 or 5 years that they're going to be on campus. But I would probably always, anytime you see any number over $1 million, for the most part, it will just be someone making up a number to get clicks or just rile things up. But as we're talking, I know we were probably going to bring it up, but assuming we land Peyton Bowen, that would be our third 5-star in this class. And I saw something, and people were in our comment section last time saying PJ lost his 5th star. That's just in the 247 rankings and within their website and their analysis. He's still a consensus 5-star. He didn't get a star taken away. Other services still see him as a very high talent in this class. But I wanted to bring that up, how many we got, because Texas just got their 4th 5th-star in this class, and Anthony Hill. I know is a player that Oklahoma was in on for a while. Clearly, at the end, it was he wanted to stay in Texas, and he is now a Longhorn. We're going to see him, and it's going to be a good stretch here in the last. I mean, we've got 5 days before these kids sign that piece of paper to say that they're to officially declare where they're going to school. Who knows? Maybe Oklahoma can pull off a miracle and land a 4th 5th-star. Seems extremely unlikely, but it's possible, I guess.
Oh, so he literally just announced it as we're recording this, like
Literally,
within
yeah.
a few minutes. Okay, nice. And I just said before, I was like, I don't feel like Texas has got a lot of targets left on the board, and I totally forgot about Anthony Hill. And yeah, that's a pretty solid addition. Um, I mean, yeah, 4 or 5 stars is not bad. But I mean, Oklahoma's not going to do too bad either. I mean, assuming Peyton Bowen comes, like you said, 3 5 stars is that's more than we've had in recent memory. And especially when you look at those 5 stars, 2 of them are on the defensive side of the ball. Um, but so the whole Peyton Bowen deal, it seems like everything's pointing to Oklahoma. Venables getting the last visit. All the reports, it seems like Notre Dame and their fan base is starting to realize this at this point now that this is pointing towards Oklahoma. And if there are any Notre Dame fans watching this, they're probably not very happy. They're just having meltdowns. It just seems like that. So it feels good, and I'm going to say it. Peyton Bowen's going to be a part of this class. It feels good to finally be, and I'm going to be on freezing cold takes if this goes wrong, but it feels good to finally be on this side of a flip right before early national signing day. I mean, we've been scarred by losing Jace McClellan, Tristan Lee, obviously David Hicks, but that was before early national signing day. Luther Burden. I mean, just huge targets, and we just couldn't close. And it seems like we're going to close on a 5-star safety. I mean, how does that feel?
It's pretty cool. And I think the biggest thing is it goes to show how much the Oklahoma brand is still one of the best in the country, regardless of last year's performance. And we can all acknowledge that it was a terrible year on the field with the results. But this coaching staff is pointing the program in the right direction. This is the best recruiting class, assuming it. Let's even just as it stands. Let's pretend like worst case scenario, we end up not landing somehow Peyton Bowen and not landing Cecilia Kana. That would still leave us in the top 10. Oklahoma, that's 2 top 10s in a row for Brent Venables and this staff, with last year finishing up in, I think it was the number 8 spot. Right now we're at number 8, and we can maybe fall 1 spot, but it seems unlikely. It seems like they're just going to be shuffling within the top 10 at this point. I mean, you're going to have 2 really good classes to build on, but it looks like Oklahoma will have a shot at the number 3 class. Miami's done a lot of really good stuff with their recruiting. Texas, like we just mentioned, got another 5-star, and I know they're in line to potentially get another 4-star here in the next couple of days. So we'll see. But I think Oklahoma is at least going to end up with a top 5 class, which for those of you who have been watching us since at least the summer, when all those recruiting events were happening, I definitely doubted that Oklahoma could get to the top five. I'm not even going to sit here and say I didn't. I did. I definitely agreed that top 10 was very possible. And it seems like that's all but, you know, a guarantee at this point. Knock on wood. But top five is just in the horizon. And just getting a couple of guys to make that either verbal announcement and signing that piece of paper on Wednesday to get things wrapped. And it's not going to be the end of the 23 class, but it'll be 90, 90, 85, 90% done.
And then this, you also talked about Eli Bowen. Eli is a 2024 four-star defensive back from Denton Guyer, obviously little brother of Peyton. He seems to be a heavy OU lean. I mean, both these kids are OU fans. That's what they grew up as, and they're only 2 hours away or so from Norman. It's kind of crazy to me that the previous staff stopped recruiting Peyton, which just seems bizarre whenever a kid grows up an Oklahoma fan and he's this good and you just stop recruiting him. And so they're going to land Peyton, assuming everything goes well. Despite that, I'd imagine Eli Bowen jumps on board quickly. I think at this point, he might be the first commit in the 24 class, assuming Peyton joins the 23 class.
Yeah, agreed. And it wouldn't surprise me if they make a verbal commitment together sometime this weekend. Make sure to follow us on Twitter because there's gonna be people visiting this weekend. Friday is the last day that coaches can go out on in-home visits, and this is the last weekend for any high school recruiting visits before the dead period. So we'll be tweeting out as we know more and the kids announce it themselves. But it wouldn't surprise me if they are, hopping in the car Saturday morning or Friday after the visit with the coaches and getting to Norman to kind of make things verbally official after an in-home.
Yeah, I think they do make the trip up to Norman, and then all of a sudden Peyton throws on his and Eli throw on their recruiting hats for everyone that will be here this weekend. And there's going to be quite a few people, and I agree. Definitely follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. There's going to probably be some people that show up that we might not even realize until they're actually there. So another guy, and I said on Wednesday's show, I felt like was going to be a part of this class, and Micah Tees. 2023 four-star, plays at Booker T, younger brother, younger T's brother. OU started recruiting him as a defensive back. He didn't want to play defensive back. They parted ways. OU lost Anthony Evans, recruiting him and then started recruiting Micah as a wide receiver. Seemed like Oklahoma was trending in a great direction for him. And then a report came out Thursday that apparently the in-home visit didn't happen with Oklahoma. He's slated to go visit Texas A&M this weekend. He's obviously not sold on Arkansas, and I think that's clear. And I don't he's going to A&M this weekend. He very well might be an Aggie after this weekend. What do you think? I mean, this just seems a little bizarre.
Yeah, when we were brainstorming when discussing everything before the show, it was weird that Oklahoma would do that for the reasons that you mentioned, because they did work so hard to get back in this recruitment after being too stubborn to offer him at the position that he wanted, which is wide receiver. Now when he did get the offer, it was in the season, so he's probably focused on football. And now that Oklahoma's got an opportunity to, add another top level wide receiver in this 23 class, they were looking elsewhere, it seems like. And we were trying to think of, potential replacements for this guy. Landon Sides, I know, is a popular name within the fan base, which not that he is a very good football player. And, his teammates earlier today were tweeting about how underrated he is nationally because in their division, 6A2, he is the second leading wide receiver in yards with 20 less receptions, and he's only behind by 10 yards to 5-star Jonte Cook. So He's a very talented wide receiver. It's interesting how some fans are selective about which 3 stars are going to hate and which 3 stars are going to love because Landon isn't even ranked. And if he is, it is a very low 3 star, and people want this guy as if he were a 5 star. Um, Not that it's a bad thing. I think he would be a great addition since he would have that chemistry already with Jackson Arnold. Another guy that could potentially be the replacement is Chance Fitzgerald, the guy that we mentioned in Wednesday's video. At the end of the day, I mentioned it on Wednesday's video. Oklahoma is shooting themselves in the foot. Ultimately, is looking elsewhere now. But at this point, it would not surprise me if Mike Tease would never entertain the idea of going to play in Norman for the Sooners because he gets put to the side because Oklahoma's too stubborn to and wants him only at cornerback, which is fine. Coaches have the have a vision for what the program wants to they want their program to be. Then when it seems like they're both on the same page, he's going to be a receiver at Oklahoma, it's trending in that direction, they just say nah. And I mean that's 2 times where a guy that wants to be a Norman is told that he is not wanted in Norman or not good enough to be a Norman. I don't know what the issue is there, but if he ever hits the transfer portal, I would not be surprised if he just completely ignores the idea of being a Sooner.
I Yeah, if I were him, I mean, just taking the bias out of it, I don't think I would have any interest either. I mean, because I already gave you another chance, and then we're trending the right way, and then you bail on me. And granted, this is all there could have been more to the story, and maybe it's just mutual, and maybe there were some things that Micah was wanting and Oklahoma couldn't promise, or maybe there's more to the story. But it just from the outside looking in, it just seems bizarre. Um, I mean, it kind of seems similar to the Malachi Coleman recruitment in a way. Like it feels like the guy's going to commit to you, but then you back off of him. It just seems this is the second time that it. I mean, Malachi, they all have different things, but it just seems different. You know what I'm
You,
saying?
you know how this staff and Brandon love to make analogies to like dating and being married? This is like you have a really pretty girl that's super interested in you, but because she's already interested, you're just going to go after some other girl who's just kind of giving you the cold shoulder or not really into you, or maybe he's never recognized you because you like the chase. You don't want to reap the rewards and be with the person that wants to be with you. I mean, come on. I just look, I understand that the coaches have a different vision for their program, and I think they're in the right direction, like I mentioned, but there's something that Venables has also mentioned is keeping in state kids in the state. And he is one of the more talented in state kids that he could have had at the wide receiver position. And you're right, there's probably more to the story than we're giving credit to. But there's no real reason to why he should have canceled it because from what he's said, like the coaches have said, and keeping Oklahoma kids in Oklahoma. But it could something else that we talked about is it could just be a prioritizing issue where they needed to get all the coaches back in Norman because they did have some visitors there on Thursday, and the coaches were with Venables, Bates, and Valai were in Katy today visiting David Hicks. So it could simply just be a logistics problem, but it should have been LD Washington in Tulsa, but I would guess he wasn't. At least not with Micah Tease.
Yeah, and part of the other side of another option, you mentioned Landon Sides, and another guy is Trey Harris, who Trey Harris is coming from Louisiana Tech. He's a wide receiver for them, and he's played well. He's 6'2", 204 pounds. Last year, he's caught 65 balls, 935 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He had a fantastic year. He visited earlier this week. He visited Ole Miss. Then he's planning to spend a day at Texas A&M, and then he's supposed to be going to Norman. I believe this weekend or somewhere around in there. He's supposed to be visiting Norman for a couple days. And could it be that he's visited Ole Miss and then he might have already visited Texas A&M? I can't remember the timing. And maybe Oklahoma just feels like we only have one spot, and Trey Harris, and we made it known to everyone. And Trey Harris was a guy that was like, "I'm your guy. I want that scholarship. I just need to come visit, and maybe it's a formality." I don't know. I mean, I feel like they're going to take someone, and it seems weird. You wouldn't back off Micah Tease if you didn't have someone in the bag with you, like with you. I mean, it just seems like they have someone, we just don't know yet for sure.
Yeah, you would hope so. Definitely hope that that is the case. At this point in my mind, just to trying to have a positive spin on this is I mean, that clearly a lot has happened with Peyton Bowe and stuff, and they probably just priority wise, Micah Tease fell lower on that list than some of these other guys, and they ended up moving on. And there probably is someone that they're now just targeting more because I mean, I feel bad for Micah if he really wanted to be a Sooner, and the coaches do this twice to him. But for Oklahoma's sake, it seems like they have a potentially a better option. And it's not like it looks like we're not losing a lot of talent and production at the wide receiver position. Mims is apparently trending towards coming back. Strick Stoops is more than likely coming back. You still have Joel Farouk, and then you have a more better two more experienced young guys and Jaden Gibson and Nick Anderson. You bring in Jaquez Petaway and Keon Brown, and maybe bring in a transfer. It's not like the wide receiver position is in need of more depth, but it's never a bad thing to have a lot of very talented receivers.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those positions you always need some additional depth there. So moving on, and is Oklahoma made a top five? I know, Jose, we didn't talk about adding in this show, but it just, I just thought of it. It's Keyshawn Blackstock. He announced his top five, and he included Oklahoma. Keyshawn is from Coffeyville Community College. He is a four-star JUCO player, number 7 overall, and the number 1 interior offensive lineman in the JUCO ranks right now. Announced his top five of Oregon, Tennessee, USC, Michigan State, and Oklahoma. He has taken an official visit to Michigan State already. From what I've seen, it doesn't look like he has a visit as we're recording this set up somewhere publicly this weekend. I'm sure he has a visit lined up with someone. I mean, I wouldn't imagine he would take this weekend off. So he went to Michigan State. Could he be visiting Oklahoma this weekend? I don't know, but it seems like Oklahoma. I mean, obviously we made the top five. Oklahoma has a need. They're losing Chris Murray. They're losing Conjal. They need a guard, and Blackstock could be a guy that's a plug and play. And the number 1 JUCO player at the interior offensive lineman, I think that'd be huge. Obviously we're competing at Michigan State. It seems like we're competing against Michigan State for a handful of guys in the 23 and 24 class now, which has not been a thing until Mel Tucker has really started to get the ball rolling up there. But I like where Oklahoma sits, but it's where he visits this weekend is going to be very telling. I mean, I would assume he's going to use all top five of his officials, but he might not.
It would not surprise me that Oklahoma at this point is just a brand at his top five, because this staff doesn't really, while they are going to use the transfer portal more, it's not like Brent Venables loves the transfer portal and Mel Tucker loves the transfer portal. That's how he's had success. It's really the only way he had success to begin with Michigan State. He brought in a ton of transfers. That's how we got Kenneth Walker a couple years back. So he loves utilizing the transfer portal. He knows how to do it to put a good team together and a good product on the field. But I mean, we'll see. I agree. I doubt that a player would take this weekend off, especially a transfer player. You have a very short window to figure out where you're going to attend next semester, and you got to get that decision soon. Just like these high school kids, you gotta get your spot at the place you want to be at, because if you don't, they'll just move on. Because at this point, college recruiting and the NCAA has always been a business, but it's more showing now than ever because of NIL and the transfer portal being such a big impact to every school managing their roster. So you got to get your spot as soon as possible.
Yeah, you just can't sit back and just like, think, it'll be there in 3 months for me. Cause it might not be there for
Yeah.
you and
And
get
next
left out in the
weekend,
cold.
sorry, and next weekend is Christmas. So I can't imagine that, you know, coaches are going to be doing much recruiting Christmas weekend. And players probably will want to, be at home, if, regardless of what holiday they're celebrating. I wouldn't imagine that there's going to be a lot of activity next weekend.
I bet you're right. I mean, people are going to shut it down for a couple days probably, and spend time with family. So I don't know. I mean, I'm optimistic. I don't really know where Oklahoma stands, other than I guess at the end of the day, it's a 20% chance, right? I mean, if he shows up on an official for Oklahoma, that's when I'll probably start feeling like, okay, this might happen. But until that happens, we might just be in a top five to be in the top five. Might
That's
be a hat.
also probably one of the things that is a hang up is the limited visits Oklahoma has, official visits Oklahoma has left. Now the NCAA was doing some vote to potentially give schools more official visits for transfer players. So I don't know how that vote went. I know it's supposed to be today. So if they did get any extra for transfer players, maybe then there's a better opportunity. But I would not be surprised if Blackstock goes somewhere else, even though Oklahoma does need, like you said, more experienced plug and play type guard. It might not be in the cards for this cycle, or at least this point in the cycle. Maybe after the holidays they do a full court press on someone that hasn't made a decision, and Blackstock might be that guy right before the semester starts, because they do have about a week after actually classes actually start to get them enrolled. I mean, we saw that last year with Caleb Williams. Dude literally enrolled like the day before the last day to enroll at USC was. So I guess it's possible, but it wouldn't be surprising if that happens again this year for any player.
That is true. He didn't announce until like the literally whenever you can withdraw from a class without a W or a failing grade or whatever it was. I can't remember the drop date, which
Mm-hmm.
is just crazy. So moving on to another guy, and since this whole Micah Tease deal has happened, is Quincy Rhodes Jr. He's a current Arkansas commit, 6'7", 255-pound kid along the defensive line. He's currently committed to Arkansas. Oklahoma has done an in-home with him. I think he's thinking about visiting Oklahoma this weekend. I feel like if OU would have gotten Micah Tease, and they still might, but I don't think so, that it might have opened the door up more for Quincy to join Micah and follow him, with the comfort there, since they're in the same class. But it might not affect his recruitment, because at the end of the day, his defensive coordinator left. And so he might still just feel like, well, I don't care if Micah goes or not. I am interested in it. This is someone that I feel like if he goes and visits Oklahoma, you like Oklahoma's chances. Obviously, if he doesn't, then I mean, there's no chance really. I mean, it's either now or never. I feel like for him, and if he chooses never, I feel like Oklahoma's going to push someone for a transfer portal, or offer someone late in the cycle who doesn't sign early.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I think we mentioned it in our last video as well. This is going to be a situation where the staff is going to either get, nab a couple kids here in the last couple days before early signing day, or there won't be much activity on defensive line recruiting again until spring semester starts, and they know exactly, what their depth looks like at that position, because they may be targeting a couple more defensive linemen in the portal, and may get them on campus and enrolled before then. So definitely a situation to monitor. But it would, again, this is that with that group alone, think they're so confident in Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis to do an excellent job at recruiting that they're okay with holding off and prioritizing a guy like Peyton Bowen and the other skill positions where they may need to bring in their heavy hitters because Jay Valai is very involved in recruiting every position. Todd Bates and Chavis are very involved in just general recruiting for Oklahoma, so they might be using those heavy hitters for other guys, and then going circling back to D line later on.
And the 24 class, they probably also know like the 24 class is looking quite strong potentially. So that if it might be a little thin and you hold an extra scholarship open for a top guy in 24 or a solid 4-star, solid 5-star, it might be worth skipping out on that. And that might be part of their reasoning. Like you're saying, they're prioritizing defensive backs. I mean, OU needs defensive backs bad. And so why not do that?
And we're probably going to see another little flood here after all the bowl games. Most of the bowl games are done right before the playoff games start, where you see guys from bigger programs or more successful programs enter the portal because they want to either for NIL purposes or they just aren't happy where they are. And maybe that's what they're waiting for to see how many more D linemen enter the portal from Power Five programs.
And that's the truth, is they might just be wanting one more game of film on their tape or something, and then just jump in the portal and see what happens. I do agree. I do see potentially some more people entering. So moving on to the last guy we're going to be talking about is, and it kind of came out of left field. Chris Hummer with 247 Sports reported, LJ Johnson, he was a top 50 player that committed to Texas A&M in the 2021 class. He's a running back originally from Cypress, Texas. Never really found a spot for himself there. Never was the guy like he was supposed to be the guy. Just it's College Station. It's kind of a weird place. I mean, College Station's not for everyone, and College Station wasn't for me. So I don't necessarily blame him. But he is supposed to be visiting UCLA. I know it seems like the top three, according to Hummer, is UCLA, SMU, and Oklahoma. And when you look at that, I mean, you look at Oklahoma. I mean, I feel like Oklahoma could beat out both those programs for his commitment. I don't really feel like that those are two programs that really make a huge threat to them as far as the brand. We're not going up against Alabama or Georgia or someone. But how much playing time and how possible is it for him to come in and truly compete and contribute day one? I mean, you've got your lead back, which you assume is Javonte Barnes. And then you look behind him. I mean, you've got Gavin Sawchuk, you've got Tolly Walker, Marcus Major still is there. I mean, there's a lot of depth. And then you add LJ Johnson, and I know DeMarco Murray's been recruiting him. It just seems like maybe LJ's is one of those guys that, yeah, we'll offer him. If he wants to commit to us, great. If not, no big deal.
So with LJ, the one reason I could see Oklahoma not being the number one spot for him is because he may want a bigger city to live in. I mean, SMU, pretty much in the heart of Dallas, UCLA, and Los Angeles, two bigger cities. Norman, while it's not separated from the world like a College Station, it is further from it's not super close to Oklahoma City as much as the university wants to say. It's a quick drive to OKC. It's really not. It's about 45 minutes on a good day. So it depends on the experience that he's looking for, I guess. But you're right. I think Oklahoma and UCLA are the two best spots for running backs in that top three that Hummer listed out for LJ Johnson. SMU's, has done well, but UCLA had Zach Charbonnet and he had a really good last couple of years. You saw what Eric Gray did at Oklahoma last year. And Javonte Barnes, like you said, is slated to be the lead back for next year. if we were to do if Oklahoma is to land and heavily recruit LJ Johnson, could be an issue with how the guys are developing. Maybe they just need to give Gavin another. Maybe they don't see Gavin gaining enough weight before the beginning of next season, or Marcus Major still having dealing with the injury bug and his availability. Tawi Walker, maybe they just need a little bit more burst of speed that potentially LJ Johnson may give them. And then, we can't forget the two running backs coming in this class, and Caleb Hicks and Dalen Smothers. Those are, again, guys that'll just continue to add to the depth in that running back room. So it would surprise me if Oklahoma heavily recruits him and ends up landing him, but it would be good for the overall makeup of the team, at least for next year, for a more immediate impact.
I would think if OU did end up landing LJ Johnson, I feel like someone in that running back room would enter into the transfer portal.
It
I
would,
mean,
and
I'm
it
not going
would.
to say Javante Barnes. I mean,
No, I don't
Barnes
think
is
it would.
locked.
I think the likely suspect would be Marcus. Don't you think?
I that's where my mind went. I mean, I just feel like he already struggled to contribute with who was ahead of him, and then all of a sudden you bring in another guy who was once a top 50 player and is still a high rated prospect to come in and compete with you. I mean, there's so few, there's such limited work to go around, and Javante has shown that he could be the number one guy. I mean, he is that guy. I mean, he's that good. And LJ has kind of the same ceiling as him. It could be, I mean, it would look pretty bleak for him.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, which it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I'm not saying that that they shouldn't get LJ, but it is interesting, and it is telling that they're recruiting him though. But we just don't know how hard they're recruiting him though.
Yeah, I think that maybe that is another thing. They want to gauge how this running back room is going to end up looking post bowl game. Because, like I said, there are going to be guys that enter the transfer portal after their bowl games, and maybe Marcus Major does enter, without being processed out. I know that's something that fans are always looking to see if it's a process, that the coaches are essentially getting them out, or if the players decided themselves. I would assume that if Marcus leaves, then they are going to recruit LJ harder, or vice versa. Like we've been mentioning, if they do go after LJ, does Marcus start entertaining the idea of the portal more? Because that is a room that he's had a tough time cracking, and it's mainly because of availability issues, not because of skill. But once you start adding more skill, and if availability continues to be an issue, it won't be very easy for him to get any playing time, regardless of the situation. If Oklahoma's blowing people out, he might not be touching the field.
Yeah, and just kind of as this is a different topic, but for something I think is or it's important now to think about is the rumor mill that's going on with all these recruits, all these recruitments and everything else. Of they feel like they come out of thin air. The whole Peyton Bowen, the NIL money. I know I've been seeing there's rumors about Jaden Greathouse and everything else. And I think just as we go into Wednesday, when you see these rumors or these reports or from various people, various Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts, take a step back and think about it logically. Like, if OU has been recruiting someone for months, you think that Oklahoma's going to be able to come in 3 days and flip them? I don't know. It just take a step back and think about it. That's all. I just feel like some of these reports and doesn't even seem logical.
Yeah, I agree.
That's just, and don't take everyone for what they say on Twitter, especially behind a random picture or a no profile where they come out with a report. My buddy heard this. and he lives in this area. He knows Texas recruiting, that type of stuff. So anyway, so I feel like it was a pretty good show. I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on. Do you have any final thoughts to add?
Nope. In the video challenge for today, let's just do favorite Christmas movie. Throw it down in the comment section. Mine, I guess this is a very popular opinion because my wife tells me I'm boring for it. But it's the Polar Express. I think it's awesome, but I guess most people think it sucks.
No, I think that's fine, but I mean, Christmas Vacation is my number one. And I think a lot of people really like that movie. At least my family does. So,
Yeah.
um, but if you made this far, like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, and Spotify. There's going to be a lot of visitors, a lot of stuff going on this weekend. Could we see a Peyton Bowen flip this weekend? I don't know. Maybe it's Friday. Maybe it's today. Maybe it's Saturday. Maybe it's Wednesday. Maybe it doesn't happen. Just follow us on Twitter so you can see immediately when it happens, or Instagram or Facebook. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, leave us a review. Helps us out a ton. And we will catch you guys on Monday, or excuse me, Sunday. And then we will be going live Wednesday, and we might go at 6 or 6:30, depending on what the people think. We don't want to necessarily compete with OU Insider, but we will if we have to. So we appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys next time.